Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polar Craft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition of the Outdoor Magazine show right here on the Outdoor Magazine Radio Network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. And glad to have you along with us as we really get past the New Year celebration and really jump into the new year. And what has this meant for you? Well, for me, it's meant tag soup. And I'll tell you what, you take one of those vinyl DNR tags with the peel off back, and if you put it in a saucepan and you fill it with water and you grate some peppercorns in there, real coarse grating like Dixie Dave teaches. And if you put a little bit of like maybe 2 bouillon cubes in there, and then if you take some bear burger and you put a little bit of that in there and you simmer it for about a half hour, and then you take the tag out, and it's actually not too bad. That's what I have to be doing. Although my bear meat is from 2 years ago. We know that story too, right? But there's always a Pure Michigan hunt. I got a good feeling this year. Of course, I always have good feelings about the Pure Michigan hunt, that I'm going to win the thing. Me and 2 others. Maybe you're 2. Maybe you are one of the 2. Maybe we will all celebrate together. I don't remember. Oh, I think it's a couple of weeks yet before they draw this Pure Michigan hunt. But I just, in the back of my mind, I keep thinking, sometime while I am still here on this earth, and hopefully while I am still young enough and in good enough shape to get out there and enjoy it, I'm going to win that Pure Michigan hunt. I really am. It's going to happen. And when it does, you're going to cry foul, and you're going to say Avery's got an in and you cheated and everything else. And you know what? I'll deal with it. I'll put up with it. I will smile, defend myself, and I'll go shoot a bull elk, and I'll go on a bear hunt, and I'll enjoy everything else in the Pure Michigan hunt. But the weather's got to be the story right now, isn't it? I don't know if you were with us a few weeks ago when Michigan's meteorologist Mark Torregrossa was with us on the show. I've known Mark forever. We used to be at the same TV station in Saginaw years and years and years ago. Now you can read his forecasting on MLive primarily, or his website farmerweather.com. And he was telling us, a good 5 weeks ago now, he said it's going to be a roller coaster. He said it's going to be cold, 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 and windy and bitter and frigid, and then it's going to be warm and crazy, and it's going to go back to cold again. Haven't felt it go back to cold again yet, but you know it's coming. What a crazy, crazy year. And of course, when you love the outdoors like we do, everything depends on Mother Nature. If you like to ice fish and there's no ice, you can't ice fish. If you like to go snowmobiling and there's no snow, you can't go snowmobiling. All you can do is adapt. For example, on Saginaw Bay, right now as we're recording the show, there's no ice. But man, they're out there knocking the snot out of big walleye out of the boats. I find it interesting that the same water, honestly, the same spots that I spend all summer on the Angler Quest trolling for 15 to 18-inch fish, all summer long and happy for every one of them, they're out there now catching 5, 6, 7-pound fish routinely. Where were these fish last summer? I mean, I think I know. I think they leave and go out to deeper, cooler water. But you got to ask the question, where were these fish when I wanted them? Or a better question would be, Avery, why do you take the boat out of the water so early? Now, even if I would have left the Angler Quest in the water, it would have had to have been pulled by now because the marina at Linwood Beach froze over here and they had to pull everything out. So it would be out of the water now. So I would need a trailerable boat. Angler Quest also makes polar craft boats. Maybe I should be talking to those guys. What else? Now, normally, well, in past years, right now, I'd be getting ready to head down to Indianapolis or Kentucky or Columbus or somewhere for the ATA show, the Archery Trade Association show. This was something I used to look forward to every year. Really thought it was a big deal, a chance to see everybody in the hunting industry, in particular the archery industry. And back then, I also used to go to these shows as a way of trying to drum up sponsor/partner support, advertising support. They changed the rules, I don't know, maybe 7, 8, 9 years ago, and it's a good thing they did, that you couldn't go in there and blatantly look for advertising support. You had to be a member of ATA, stuff like that. But starting just before COVID, I started to look at that show and go, what is the purpose of going to the show? Why do I go? Why do I take the time away from my office? Why do I take the time away from the studio? Why do I spend the expense to go down there, to drive down there? Why do I spend the ridiculous, outrageous prices for a downtown big city like Indianapolis hotel room? Because everything they unveil, it's unveiled online anyway. I can sit in my office here in Michigan, pull up the internet, and look at every introduction live, and I'll see exactly what the people down in Indianapolis are seeing, except I won't be able to put my hands on the bows. At least not yet. Plus, can I be really honest with you? I think maybe the bigger thing is I just don't want to be around the celebrity hype that is the world of outdoor television. I just don't want to be around these young guys with the fancy scrolling on their back pockets of their jeans. I just don't want to be around these young girls who have never picked up a bow before the first season of their TV show. And I know I'm not being fair here, and I know I'm characterizing and misjudging and actually being downright mean. Okay, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said it that way. But at this point in my life and this point in my career, I don't want to be around that type of stuff. I want to be around the real heart of what it is that what we do. The people, the families who enjoy these activities, the people who make these products and make these services available, but I don't want to be around the celebrity that is the world of outdoor television. And thank God, literally, God, I'm looking up at you, thank God that I don't have to do that anymore. I don't miss it. Charlie, we got to get you a little grease on that chair over there. I don't miss it at all. I thought I would, but I don't. I don't miss it at all. You know what else? Speaking of weather, and I don't think this is actually weather related, but I can't come up with a reason why this is happening. I've had several people send me pictures already of shed whitetail antlers. Now, it does seem early, doesn't it? Yes, it does. Why? Is it, I get if there's a physical or a biological strain on a buck, like if we were having some just crazy cold weather, or if they weren't getting enough to eat, or if they were stressed for whatever reason, they might drop those racks early. And it's not a horn. Horns don't drop. Antlers drop. Horns belong on sheep, cows, Chevy pickups. Antlers belong on deer, moose, and elk. If it drops every year, it's an antler. If it doesn't drop, it's a horn. Anyway, they seem to be dropping early this year. Why is that? What do you think? Let me know. If you want to let me know your thoughts on that or anything, you can send me an email. My address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That is the single best way to get in touch with me, unless you know my cell number. And if you know my cell number, you can just call me or you can just text me. But if you don't know my cell, just send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Questions, comments, suggestions, criticisms, questions for the Ask Avery segment, which is coming up in the last segment of the second hour. Last segment of the second hour. That's kind of become its normal spot. My website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Coming up on this week's Outdoor Magazine show after the break, we're going to be talking a little bit more about this bonus, tremendous, very, very late season open water walleye trolling on Saginaw Bay with Captain Mark Pieniozek of Real Fishing. Then Bob Ransom of the Primal Company joins me. They used to be called Primal Tree Stands. They've changed the name now to Primal Outdoors. They've changed the focus of the company. They're adding a lot of new products. We'll talk with him about that as he gets ready to go to the ATA show. If I was a manufacturer or a retailer, I would be at ATA. I would put all my personal prejudices aside, and I would go to the show. Absolutely, I would have to. Hour number 2, Taylor Pierson, who is a guy who has the art of catching huge, big pike through the ice, joins me. When they had ice in southern Michigan, he landed 3 of them over, I don't know, what were they, 48 inches, 45 inches? He doesn't have ice now, but it's coming back. We'll talk about that. Chad Stewart of the DNR with his thoughts on how the mandatory reporting system went. Ask Avery at the end of the hour. And in hour number 3, we're talking trapping with Dale Hendershot of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. And, of course, we'll wrap it all up with wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar, the newly retired wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. My name is Mike Avery. The show is called Outdoor Magazine. The email address is mike at mikeaveryoutdoors.com, and the website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Well, that pretty much sums it all up. Be back in just a minute right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WZTK in Alpena. That's 105.7 FM. You can hear us in Port Huron on WPHM, 1380 AM. And let's go north of the bridge. Let's go to Marquette, WDMJ, 1320 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by the Linwood Beach Marina and Campground. Linwood Beach can be your year-round Saginaw Bay fishing destination and your Mid-Michigan Tracker and Angler Quest headquarters. For more info, check them out online at linwoodbeachmarina.com. That's linwoodbeachmarina.com. So the question right now is, if you go to Linwood Beach, right now being right now, anytime for the next 2 weeks or whatever, are you going to find ice or are you going to find open water? The marina might be iced up. But outside of the marina, I think, especially the way the weather forecast looks, you're going to have a good chance of seeing open water, which makes ice anglers very, very sad, but it makes the open water trollers very happy. Captain Mark Pieniozek of Real Fishing is one of those guys who likes that open water. He's been out there taking advantage of it, and he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line. Cap, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing great, Mike. Happy New Year, and thanks for having me back.
Happy New Year. Always a pleasure to have you along with us. And I like talking with you, Mark, because, man, I think you know that bay and the fishery probably as well as anybody because you literally grew up on that water.
I actually did, Mike. I was very fortunate. My parents bought a house. Actually, when they were building the marina, back in the day, they moved the dirt to the south of the marina and built up a little swampy area, which I know you probably couldn't do now with all the regulations, but they built that up, and my parents built a house there, and so yeah, it was a playground. It was in my backyard for the majority of my life.
And that bay is still a playground for you now.
It is more of a playground now than I think that I ever thought it would be.
For people like you and I who have watched this walleye fishery evolve over the years, it's a really great conservation success story, isn't it?
It really is, Mike. When you go from the fact that when I was a kid, in the 60s, we didn't have walleye. The walleye were all taken out. And now to have the fishery that we have, it's a world-class fishery, bar none. I get people from all over the country coming here, and I think that's one of the things the locals don't really realize is how big of an impact this place has on people, not just from our area, but from out of state.
I know conditions change quickly, and from the time we record the show till it hits the air, things can also change then. But when we had this big cold spell a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago, did the bay ever freeze up? Did people get out there at all?
A lot of people, actually, some people are still on the edges perch fishing.
Oh.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not going to highly recommend you run right out there, but there were guys out there. There were people fishing in Linwood Beach Marina. There were guys fishing on the edge, and actually, there were some people that went out probably to about 7 feet of water off of like Parish Road, Bowtail Road. You could get out that far and still have about 7 inches of ice. There was ice as far as you could see, that I could see from Linwood.
So at Linwood Beach right now, is the marina still iced up? Can you get a boat in there, or have you got to go down to the river?
It is currently iced up, but we're working on a few things trying to get it back open.
Yeah, can I suggest dynamite?
I would love if we could do that. Actually, I was just talking to one of the guys from Linwood Beach Marina yesterday, and we were talking about maybe getting some airboats there together. I would do it with mine, but I actually sold mine, so we're talking about getting some airboats together and knock that thing open to relieve some of the pressure there that's going on at the DNR launch.
Pressure at the DNR launch at the mouth of the Saginaw River in January. Isn't that crazy?
It is, but it's not the first time. I've done it before. There's been a few years since I've been chartering the last 8-9 years. There's been a couple years where I've been able to fish in the boat every month. So it is unusual, but not, totally unusual.
So if you had a client come to you right now and say, okay, I want to fish open water, January walleye on the Saginaw River or Saginaw Bay, Captain Mark, I'm going to leave it to you to make the decision on where to go. Where would you take them right now?
Both are really good. The river is very, very good, but I'll be honest with you, I haven't jigged the river. We've been trolling the river. We've been trolling the river with bandits. I don't care. You can troll right down the middle of it and catch fish, and nice fish. Actually, we've been trolling the river and catching nicer fish trolling than the guys jigging. I mean, we've been catching up to 8-9 pounders trolling, and the guys next to us jigging are just catching nothing but small fish. Can't catch a keeper. So there are some phenomenal fish in both areas.
Wow, you just really got my attention with that, because I thought for sure, wow, that's interesting. So, for one thing, hey, Mark, all summer long, we're out there on Saginaw Bay chasing 15 to 18-inch walleye. Where are all these big girls you guys are catching now? Where are they midsummer?
They all leave. They all leave very quickly. So there's a bunch of data. I was down with Lance Valentine down in Huron, Ohio, and there's a bunch of data going around, and it shows not just down there on Erie, but also data up here of what our walleye really do. And all the big walleye do not like warm water. That's why we don't see the big fish down here in the summers, because they do not like warm water. So most of the big fish spawn and they end up splitting. Some go to the east side and they go up and they go to Port Austin, and the other ones go up towards Alpena, and the big fish do not like warm water, so they leave. So that's why we don't see them till the fall, and we'll see them now till spring, and then once they spawn, they're gone.
Well, let's talk more about trolling the river. The biggest walleye I ever caught in the river was many, many years ago, trolling a lime, green, and silver quarter-ounce Hottentot way up in Saginaw around the bridge piling. So to hear that you guys are still doing that now is pretty cool to me.
It is. So we're running bandits anywhere from 20 to 45 back, Mike. So you can be in 30 feet of water right in the middle of the river channel, and there's just a bunch of fish up high. So we've been doing really well. You just have to run around and find them, just like you have to do out on the bay. I mean, I'm trolling the bay too. It just depends on if it's too rough to get out there, then we'll hit the river and do just as well in the river as we do the bay. So. And it's not just in the flat areas like most people think. We're just fishing the flats. That's not really what's going on. It's wherever we can find fish, and they are up in the water column, and they could be anywhere.
Okay, so if they are up in the water column, they're in the middle of the river, in the shipping channel. They're there because they're feeding. That's why they're there, right?
Oh, they're just full of shad. I mean, just chock full of shad. Some of these fish, the odds of them not having anything in their stomachs right now are about 0. I mean, they are just putting the feed bag on right now. They have big shad in them. Some of the shad I pulled out of them, 6-7-inch shad I pulled out of these. And they're not just one. There's like 10, 15 shad in there.
Wow. Does color make a difference on the baits?
So it can. The biggest difference between, trolling at, we're trolling at 1.2, 1.3 miles an hour. Color can make a difference. I think the wobble of your lure makes more of a difference more than anything else if it's tuned correctly. But I think the wobble and sometimes the color depends on the clarity of the bay. The bay is usually pretty dirty compared to other waters. And so a lot of times that lure really doesn't shine the colors like it really should. But I think the wobble is more important than anything because I've got some lures that don't have any paint on them, and they still catch as many fish as, a brand new one out of the box.
In that dirty water, though, does everything have a rattle?
Yes, 100%, because otherwise it'll go right by the fish, and the fish will have a hard time finding it. So that rattle is extremely important in dirty water like we have up here on the Saginaw Bay and the river.
How do you judge your speed or keep track of your speed when you're trolling upstream versus downstream? Current's going to affect that. How do you monitor it?
So I use a fish hawk. I have a fish hawk that I put on the side of the boat and drop it down on a separate line. And it's a portable fish hawk that you can use, and you slide it right down there. And I don't use it much on the Saginaw Bay itself, but like when I go down Fish Erie or the river here, it's a tremendous, tremendous help because it's a guessing game. You have no clue how fast the current's going. Sometimes on the river it can be, half mile an hour. It can be nothing sometimes. Now with the dams blowing up and stuff, it can be nothing, but it can be up to a mile an hour. So you have to be able to adjust to it, and you're only going to catch them going one way because you can figure it out one way, But so the fish hawk to me is an invaluable tool. I would have never thought about that 5 years ago about using a fish hawk for walleye because we never talk about currents and things of that nature. But it's a huge, huge tool for anyone that's serious about walleye.
Well, you talk about the direction the fish are facing. In the river, I'm assuming they're facing upstream, so I would think trolling downstream would be far more effective because you're bringing a bait right in front of them. True or no?
If you can figure out the speed, it doesn't matter which way you're going. Honest to God, it does not matter. It's very interesting. Now, some days they like it going one way more than the others, just like the Saginaw Bay. They like it going north instead of south or whatever. But if you get your speeds right, it doesn't matter which way you're going.
Are you running these baits on boards, offshore boards?
Yes, 100%.
The
tattle flag. I'm a big tattle flag user.
Okay, as I can say, the OR12s, not the mini boards, the OR12s.
Yep. Even though I will say that the mini boards will pull bandits and all that stuff with no issues whatsoever. But yeah, I'm using the 12s with I'm a tattle flag guy. And the reason why is more for my customers, more for myself. I mean, I fish every day, so I can tell when there's a fish on. But for my clients, it's so much easier when the tattle flag goes down that they can see the board better. So I'm a big fan of the tattle flag.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love the tattle flags as well. We're talking with Captain Mark Pieniozek of Real Fishing. You can find him online at Real Fishing LLC. Talking about trolling, not ice fishing, trolling the Saginaw Bay and the Saginaw River right now. Now, conditions change. Keep that in mind. If the bottom drops out of the temperature between when we're recording this show and this weekend, things could change. But that river's going to stay open year-round now. What is that going to be like? I want to get Mark's thoughts on that and much more. Then coming up after we finish with Mark, Bob Ransom, Primal Outdoors will join us as well. And coming up in hour number 3, we're talking about giant pike through the ice with Taylor Pierson. That's all coming up right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Battle Creek on WBCK 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Muskegon on WKBZ 1090 AM. And let's go north of the bridge to Escanaba, WCHT 600 AM 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by VersaSkins. Michigan-based VersaSkins owner Paul Perrone has come up with a great concept. Instead of spending a whole bunch of money on different sets of hunting clothes, why not just buy one good quality, warm, windproof, waterproof, weatherproof set of clothes and snap on and zip on an outer liner of a different camo pattern. Check them out online at versaskins.com. That's versaskins.com. Right now, though, we're talking about fishing, late season, wintertime, open water, walleye fishing on the Saginaw River and Saginaw Bay with Captain Mark Pieniozek of Real Fishin' LLC. Is his website. Cap, what do you, I realize you're not a fortune teller, but I'm going to ask you to look down the road here a little bit. What do you see as far as ice conditions this year? There used to be an old saying around the Bay, if we didn't have ice by the end of January, we weren't going to get it. What do you think is going to happen this year?
I think it's going to be a typical year, Mike. I mean, so there have been times when I've been ice fishing by the 17th, December 17th. There's been times when I haven't been able to get out till January 20th. So this, to me, is kind of like a normal year because usually we can't get out after the walleye till the 15th or 20th anyway. So this is not, it's not, causing any issues with myself. I'm taking out people with the boat instead of ice fishing, so it all works out. Will
you run ice trips if conditions allow?
I will not be, but my partner Adam will be. I'm going to be too busy doing some other things, but my partner Adam will be, yes.
Would you rather, do you consider yourself an open water guy, or are you one of those guys who, even though you don't take clients out, who absolutely loves ice fishing?
I grew up ice fishing. I absolutely love ice fishing. But as my age, it's just tougher. It's ice fishing with customers is a hard work. And with my age, I'm just not. I'm kind of losing that edge a little bit as far as taking clients. I'll go out and fish by myself or with some buddies or something a little bit. I absolutely love ice fishing. There's nothing better than having an 8-pounder smack your rod as you're holding it, you know what I mean, and be able to reel it up. But I've seen so many things when I was doing the rescues and stuff with the Coast Guard and stuff like that. It's kind of soured me a little bit on the ice fishing thing.
Is ice fishing or open water trolling or jigging in the river for walleye more effective, ice or open water?
Oh, man, that's a good question because you can pile them up ice fishing, which is very interesting because you're not moving anywhere, right? You're sitting over one hole hoping the fish come. So you can pile them up both ways. It's very interesting to me how you can sit in 16 feet of water ice fishing and the fish come in the evening and you can get your 8-fish limit and not have to move anywhere, whereas in a boat you're trolling for miles and trying to pick up your fish. So both ways are extremely, extremely effective on the bay right now just because of the fish population is just phenomenal. So I can't say one way is better than the other or you're going to get more doing one or the other because it just happens to be on the day and what's going on. But ice fishing can be extremely, extremely effective.
Speaking of that fish population, what do you think of the new regulation for this spring that the Saginaw River up to Center Street Bridge in Saginaw is going to stay open year-round? It used to be closed under the heading of a spawning closure. No longer, Cap. What do you think?
Man. My personal opinion is I don't like it. We have a great fishery here. And what's going to happen is obviously those fish are going to come in. They're in a smaller area. They're cruising up the river, right? And I think we're going to just pile up a bunch of fish. I just really do. But the reason being behind this whole thing, if I'm not mistaken, is about bringing back the perch population on the Saginaw Bay. I think that's the reason why they're doing it. They want to lower the walleye numbers to bring the perch back. I don't think the perch are going to come back to the way that we used to have it when we were kids, Mike. It's just not going to happen. our ecosystem has changed. There's too many different things in our water system, and I don't see it ever coming back to the way it used to be, where you could go out and catch, that pile of fish anymore. I just don't see that. So for us to take all these walleye out of our system to do that, I don't think it's the right thing. But I've been wrong before. My wife has told me many times, so we'll see what happens.
It will be interesting to see how hard that fishery gets hit. As you well know, because you go to the Detroit River every spring, the walleye anglers hammer that fishery, but it seems to hold up year after year. I wonder how many of those people now will just head down to the Saginaw rather than drive the extra hour and a half, 2 hours down to Detroit.
Right. So that's a big thing, too. So the biggest difference between the Detroit River and the Saginaw River is the Detroit River gets fed by both sides, right? You got Lake St. Clair. All those walleye come out of there. They come out of Lake Erie. And Lake Erie and the Saginaw Bay are not the same.
Yeah.
People always go, well, they're the same. Well, they're not the same. Lake Erie's a couple hundred miles long. The Saginaw Bay is 33 miles by 33 miles. That's all we have. Our system is a very fragile, small system compared to Lake Erie and other places. Excuse me. So
that's all right. Listen, Cap, I was unfair to you anyway. I asked you that question too late in the conversation. But if people want to hear the answer to this, they can tune into the Offshore Tackle podcast, of which Captain Mark Pieniozek of Real Fishing is featured there as well. Cap, always a pleasure. We'll talk again soon. I will send people to the Offshore Tackle podcast to hear more from you. We'll take a break. When we come back, Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Caro on WKYO 1360 AM, WIDL 92.1 FM. You can hear us in St. Joe on WSJM 94.9 FM. And north of the bridge in the Sioux on News Talk 1400 WKNW. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Rapid River Knives. As always, I have a Rapid River knife in my pocket right now. Rapid River Knives had such a good holiday season, they sold every knife they had. Yeah, Charlie, they sold every knife they had. I was talking to Chris Durson the other day. They actually closed down the showroom. They said, look, we got to catch up on production. We'll use this opportunity to clean the showroom up real good, get it real nice and sparkly again. We're making new knives. You can still go to the website, though. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. Check it out. See what they have to offer, and you could own a Rapid River knife like I do. RapidRiverKnifeWorks.us. We'll have Chris Durson here on the show to bring you up to speed on where they are here in the next couple of weeks. But in the meantime, talking about companies that I deal with, companies that I partner with. And you notice I never use the term sponsor. I don't like sponsors. Sponsors come and go. Partners are when two entities combine forces for a mutually beneficial outcome. And that's what I have done with Bob Ransom over so many years. First at Ameristep, these days at Primal. Now, we used to say Primal tree stands. Now, there's a change in philosophy. There's a change in focus. There's a change in direction. There's a change in products. And Bob Ransom of Primal Outdoors is with us to talk about that. Bob, welcome back to the show. How are you?
Oh, Mike, great. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. So listen, we go from Primal tree stands to now Primal Outdoors. What does that mean, Bob? Are you getting out of the tree stand business?
Absolutely not. We're developing more tree stands, more ladder stands than ever before, coming out with new technology, Mike. But what that means is we're expanding into other categories into the sporting goods arena, other categories into the hunting arena. We've got some really, really interesting camera technology. And then, of course, with my background with Ameristep and ground blinds are just a very easy, natural progression, natural category for us to enter into.
Well, everybody knows I love your Wraith 270, your see-through ground blind. That's my go-to blind. That is my favorite blind. How can you improve on that? What else have you got out there, Bob?
Oh, well, we're coming out with one that has a heavier fabric, heavier than what we're currently using. Currently, the Wraith uses a 300D. We're going to put together a blind using a lot of new technology, new ideas, I should say, but we're going to do it with a 600 denier fabric.
Wow. So it'll be heavier, it'll hold in the heat better, it'll be warmer, but it'll be, well, is it going to be a bigger blind as well?
It is. It is going to be a bigger blind, correct. It's going to be a 66 by 66 inch footprint.
Got a name on it yet?
The Terminator.
I was just waiting to see if we're going to call it the Big Guy or the Avery or something like that. Okay, Terminator works too. I'll let you go with that one. Yeah. So will that be unveiled? This and the other new stuff you're talking about, is this going to all get unveiled at ATA? Or are we talking down the road yet, Bob?
No, we're going to introduce this next week at the ATA, the Archery Trade Association show, which this year will be held in Indianapolis, which is our favorite venue.
Yeah, I'm not going down because I can sit back and watch everything online, but I understand why you as a manufacturer and the dealers are certainly going to be there. And Indy was my favorite place for an ATA show, no doubt about that. Yeah, Indy's the home of the ATA, that's for sure. So, Bob, let's talk a little bit about camera technology. I had the Blind Spot 350. I got one of the first, it wasn't a prototype, but one of the first working models when I took it to Ontario last August on a bear hunt. I'm really looking forward to using that in the springtime Michigan turkey woods as well. But you're taking camera technology a step beyond that as well.
Yes, we're coming out with what we call the Outpost 360, Mike, and it works off cellular service. But what it is it's a live cam. You can work it with your phone. You can connect with the camera wherever the camera is. In the United States, wherever your blind is, up north or in Nebraska, and you can, let's say the last half hour of daylight, you can jump on your phone and you can actively maneuver, work the camera live from your phone. So we're really excited about that because that's new technology. Not only can it spin 360 degrees, but it also can go up and down 100 degrees. So, it's a game changer for us.
So it takes the concept of a wireless cellular trail camera, and it takes it to a new level because besides just being fixed on that one spot like a cellular trail camera is, you can move this around and see what else is going on.
Exactly. Exactly. Not a lot of times, when you have a cell cam, you connect it, you hook it up to the post, the tree, whatever it is that you're fixing your camera to, and that's the direction that it takes. This is a situation where you can jump on your camera live and you can look all the way around, 360 degrees live. And so let's say you've got a great big buck that's out in front of your camera, because when that deer walks into the path of the camera, it will notify your phone.
Nice.
You jump on your phone and you can follow that deer. You can follow that deer wherever it goes to get better video or pictures.
Very cool, Bob. Got to cut you off. The website, primaloutdoors.com, primaloutdoors.com. Keep an eye on that for these exciting new products coming up. Congrats to Bob Ransom.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction, and welcome to another edition, hour two of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations. And I always say the best way to listen, if you can, is on your local radio station. There you get your local news, your local weather, your local sports, even your local commercials. Maybe there's something you want to take advantage of. But if you can't listen on your local AM or FM station, if they don't carry all 3 hours, or if you live in some part of our state not covered by the broadcast signal, isn't it nice to know that there's a podcast version of the show available as a backup? Podcasting is huge. Most podcasts that are out there are available only as podcasts. So I think it's pretty cool that my radio show is available first on your local radio station, then as a podcast as a backup. Where do you hear the podcast? You can hear it on my website, MikeAveryOutdoors.com. You can hear it on my Facebook page. You can hear it on Amazon Music, on Audible, on Twitter. I mean, everywhere you can hear a podcast, you can hear the podcast version of the Outdoor Magazine radio show. But regardless of how you are listening, boy, I sure do appreciate it. Hey, listen, as long as I'm talking about podcasting, let me put in a blatant promotional plug for some podcasts. Every month I do podcasts for Offshore Tackle, Angler Quest Boats, Primal Outdoors, and Polar Craft Boats. Keep an ear out for those as well. So we're talking about the weather in the first hour. It's kind of up and down, isn't it? We just don't know what it's going to be. When we had a cold spell here a couple of weeks ago, right away, right off the bat, I got some pictures of some big monster pike from Taylor Pierson. I know Taylor as a guy who concentrates on big pike through the ice in the southern part of the state. And he's with us now on the Outdoor Magazine phone line to talk about that and more. Taylor, welcome back. How are you?
Pretty good, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing just great. Always a pleasure to talk with you. But, man, as we are talking right now, do you have any ice? Did you lose your ice?
No, our ice is gone. There's still a little sheet on some lakes, but it's nothing you could ever walk on.
So what do you do then? Do you take these same waters and fish in open water, or do you wait till they tighten up again?
Well, we're debating, and I've been talking with a few buddies the last few days. We debated getting a boat out, but I don't know. We'll see. The forecast doesn't look good. It's going to be probably at least 2 weeks before we can think about getting on ice again. So I don't know. We'll see.
So is that frustrating to you? Does that drive you crazy?
Well, you could say that. Beyond frustrating this year, especially because we thought we were going to get early ice and have good winter, and then this came.
When you deal with Mother Nature, though, right? You take what she throws at you.
Yeah, right. What can you do? Well, we can be happy that we at least got on for a week and got a few nice fish, and especially being on lakes we've never fished before. That made us feel even better.
And nice fish, that's kind of an understatement, Taylor. When I see you guys holding these fish, to me, a big pike is one thing. What's a big pike to you guys?
38, we try to at least say 38's a monster. Anything over 35, 36 in our area is a monster pike, but we try to at least get 38 plus.
And you do.
Really big one.
And you do every year, don't you?
Yeah, we do. Pretty much we try to at least get, 3 or 4 over 40 is our goal. Mm-hmm. I'm always shooting for at least a 20, 22 pounder to put on the wall around here. But.
Wow. See, I would think you'd have to go, north to find these fish, at least the UP, maybe Canada, but you're finding them in southern Michigan. How do you do that?
We've definitely learned it's not easy. I spend a lot of time on Navionics all summer long, looking at different spots on lakes and different lakes, and just trying to find the best lakes with the best conditions for pike and, knowledge of the years of pike lakes around here. And pretty much we learned it's just spending time. As much as anything, you can put advantages on anything, but just patience more than anything with these big fish, that's for sure.
Will you fish these big lakes in the summer routinely in open water, or do you like to wait until they freeze up?
Yeah, we don't really target the pike in the summertime. We'll catch a few trolling for walleyes, but if anything, we're just checking areas while we're out fishing to see what looks good and weed beds and lines and stuff like that. But no, we don't really target them at all in the summertime.
They're there, right? Those big fish are there.
They're there, for sure. We get our pan fishing done in the summer and spring, so we can do this pike fishing all winter long.
What's the appeal of these big fish, Taylor? Why does it drive you crazy?
I don't know. I guess it's the lure. Just like, it's so hard to find them. There's so few around. It's like our giant whitetails around here. It's just the thrill of the chase to actually find them and to take the skill to actually find them. Not many people can do it, so that makes it a pretty fun challenge to do around here.
I've heard you describe it before, like chasing a trophy whitetail. I guess they're similar in some ways, aren't they?
Yeah, I would say so, very much. I mean, especially the low numbers in Michigan, it's definitely a challenge. You can't just go out on any lake and drill a hole and catch a giant pike, just like you can't go on any piece of property and sit in a bucket and shoot a giant buck. I mean, there's always a luck of the draw, but on the averages, you really got to spend your time to either catch a giant or shoot a giant, one or the other.
But, continuing on this theme, guys like John Eberhardt are consistently good at pulling big whitetails out of places people didn't think they were going to come. You, Taylor Pierson, are consistently good at pulling big pike out of places maybe people didn't expect to see them.
Yeah. I mean, it takes a lot of time and effort and studying more than anything I've learned over the years. Just got to put your time in, just like with whitetails.
Does every lake hold big pike?
I mean, you can say, yeah, there's going to be a few big pike on any lake, but not on average. I mean, we try to find certain lakes, like flowing water, definitely. If it's got a river or a creek flowing through it, definitely makes an advantage for big pike. And then just bigger acreage-sized lakes seem to have more. And then, I mean, you could say clearer water lakes have more numbers, so there's going to be bigger pike, but it's hard. You try to find lakes that just aren't fished as hard more than anything. Is what we look for.
But you don't necessarily have to go north to find them.
Oh, no. I mean, there's plenty of, there's a 40-inch fish in every lake around here. It's just putting your time in and spending time and trying to catch it. I mean, I don't know how many days we spend on lakes with no flags or one flag, and it's maybe a 26-incher, It's just some of our best lakes have turned into great lakes. It's just we spent weeks on there without catching anything. It's a matter of putting your time in.
See, that's interesting. I'm used to seeing you and your fishing buddies holding these big monster pike. I guess I don't think about the hours and the days that you spend out there when nothing happens.
Yeah, I mean, we got really lucky this year. That lake where we caught those two the first 2 days, that was the first time I'd ever stepped foot on that lake and just looked at avionics all summer long and picked spots out on there that we thought looked really good, and we set our tip-ups along there, and first fish was a 41-incher. I mean, you can't really go wrong with that. We felt pretty good about it.
No, that's very impressive. But now when I hear about the work that goes in behind the scenes and during the summer months and in the off season, I start to see what you guys are up to, Taylor.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, there's always luck involved, but we try to put all our eggs in the right basket to make it better for us, for sure.
Well, I'll take luck, but I'm not sure in your case, or guys like you, how big of a role luck plays, because you're putting a lot of work in. You're putting the odds in your favor as much as you can.
Yeah, we're definitely trying. Lots of hours spent to succeed, that's for sure.
So are you catching these fish on what, tip-ups?
Yeah, all tip-ups. I mean, we've talked about the rod, the jaw jackers and everything, but I love that hand-to-hand combat.
It's kind of interesting to watch you guys, the way you play these fish, because it does become hand-to-hand, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, 100%. I mean, it's just like hand lining anything around the world. We're using 40-pound fluorocarbon leaders, so you can't put a ton of pressure on them, and then, you could get bit off at any moment, so you got to be a little bit sensitive with them.
You using the old-style tip-ups or something new, fancy, high-tech?
I mean, they're not really new. Those Frabill thermals, the ones with insulation on them, the round ones, they've been around for a long time, but I just prefer to use those, just keep the hole clean more than anything. They seem to never fail me. I mean, I've been using them for 15 years now, and I really can't complain one bit about them.
Taylor, you post a lot of stuff online. Is there like a TaylorPearsonOutdoors.com website? Where do we go to find this stuff? If you want, do you want to share them?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't have a public page now. I mean, my Facebook page is public, but I have Facebook and Instagram, but I don't have any outdoor pages anymore. We just old school, just go out and catch fish.
So look for Taylor Pierson on Facebook, on Instagram. We're going to find some big fish. Taylor, hang tight. Got to take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine show, but I do want to talk to you more about these big fish. Taylor and his fishing partners, his buddies, really have got this dialed in. I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. I love to talk with people who are very, very good at what they do. And Taylor Pierson is one of the best when it comes to targeting big pike, trophy pike, through the ice, especially in the southern part of the state. More after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show on more than 30 stations across the great state of Michigan, including WCBY in Sheboygan, Big Country Gold, WCBY 1240 AM, 100.7 FM. You can hear us in Flint on Sports Extra 1330 WTRX. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Manistee on WTIQ 1490 AM, 95.3 FM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Boning Archery. Boning has been a leader in the archery industry since 1946. They continue to innovate, come up with new products, new techniques, new designs for bow hunters and target archers as well. Check them out online at boning.com. That's BOHNING.com, boning.com. We're talking now, though, with Taylor Pierson. Taylor is a guy who I think is, he's one of the best out there when it comes to targeting trophy pike, primarily through the ice. This year, Taylor, you got off to a good start, and Mother Nature just threw a curveball at you, didn't she?
Yeah, she did, for sure.
You will be out there if you can. If not, I mean, would you get the boats out there? Would you go after these fish through the on open water, or would you just say, you know what, we'll just wait till next year?
I don't know. We'll see. I mean, if it gets that desperate by February, who knows? I mean, our Freebo tip-ups do float, so we might get a boat out and let them float around. Who knows?
I'm not going to ask you where you are, but would people recognize the names of these lakes where you're at? Are they well-known bodies of water?
Yeah. I mean, there was 150 guys on the one lake that we were fishing last week or 2 weeks ago. Yeah, there's always plenty of guys on them, almost all the lakes. Sadly, my best lake, I mean, everybody knew about, and rather than keeping it a great resource, they took all the big pike out of there, and now it's not even worth going to fish there anymore. I mean, that's one of the sad things about this fishery is, I mean, it's very sensitive. You know, a lot of these big pike, you can't keep taking them out of these lakes, so they'll go in a hurry because there aren't big lakes we're fishing.
So, I mean, are you keeping these big fish, or are you letting these guys go, these girls, these gals go,
No.
these females?
Yeah, we let them all go. I'll let somebody keep one if they're going to put it on the wall, but no, I'm just chasing one to mount. We're just chasing records, pretty much, we always say, but we'll never catch a state record, but it'd be nice to say we're chasing it at least.
What would that be? How big would that fish have to be?
It's 39 pounds is a Michigan state record.
Ooh.
Yeah, it's a monster.
Well, but when I see you hold these fish on the ice, they are monsters. They're huge. They're big fish. They're for most people, they'd be the catch of a lifetime.
Oh yeah, I mean they are to us. I get excited, seeing a 40-incher every time. I mean, they are fish of a lifetime for sure. And I couldn't imagine seeing even a 30-pounder come through the hole, man. It would be a monster.
When these fish hit, do you know right away they're a big fish? Does a big fish bite differently, or do all pike bite the same, and you don't know until you grab the line?
It really seems that every lake seems to be different. I mean, some lakes we know for sure right away when it's a big one because that top on those fray bills will really be flying. I mean, it's like you can't even see it. It's spinning so fast. But a few of these other lakes, it seems like the deeper water lakes we fish, they really, you can't tell. I mean, they'll run a little bit, but you'll set the hook and when you feel weight, and you really don't know until you see it if it's a 30-incher or a 40-incher, and it's hard to tell sometimes.
So what's the key? Is it kind of an art form, fighting these fish, landing these fish? Because it is hand-to-hand combat.
Yeah. I mean, as much of an art form as you can get with any type of fishing, you know, you're just trying to keep tension, not put too much tension on them, and not let them get too violent in the hole. You know, just be gentle with them so they don't get crazy, because any little head shake can snap that line and bite through that line at any moment. It really scares me every time.
How long do you let them run on that first initial run before you set the hook?
Well, I try to let them stop, you know, because from what I've learned over the years of spearing and just watching them and just so many I've missed, is that it seems like they'll grab it and sometimes they don't always have the hook in their mouth, so they'll run and then they'll stop, and then once they stop, they'll suck it back in. That's when you can set them and you don't get them, but try to just let them run till they stop, or at least till you run out of line.
How far will they run? I mean, are they gonna run 30 yards, 10 yards? I mean, is it a ways?
Yeah, a big one. I mean, on average, I'd say, 50 to 100 yards. I mean, you're losing 150 to 300 feet of line on that first run, usually with the decent one.
Oh, that's pretty exciting. It's got to be exciting.
Oh, yeah, especially in that shallow water. You know, we fish sometimes 3-4 foot of water, and they're running 400 feet of line. It's pretty exciting.
Wow. 3-4 feet of water. I'm surprised. I'm surprised you're that shallow.
Yeah, I mean, it really took me a lot of years of watching fish in northern Canada in that area. I mean, they'll fish 2-3 foot of water all winter long, and so we just kept pushing the brim, pushing in and pushing shallower, and we learned, I mean, we get a lot of big ones up in that 3, 4, 5 foot of water where we've caught a lot of big fish.
Well, are they're coming that shallow because what, they're pushing bait fish up in there? They're feeding. They're in there to feed, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's got to be some bait in there, which you'd think, you don't really pan fish in that shallow, but I mean, suckers, maybe little carp. I don't know what they're feeding on for sure. It's hard to say, but they're definitely in there feeding, and I mean, there's not much pressure in there, so nobody's really in there bothering them. They feel safe in there, I guess. Speaking
of bait, how big a bait are you running?
Big as we can get. I mean, we try at least 10, 12-inch suckers was pretty much what we use. River daces, anything big, 9, 10, 12 inches.
Does it matter how you hook them? Is there a special way to hook these fish, these bait?
I mean, I've been through it all. I've tied my own quick strike rigs. I bought quick strike rigs, done triple rigs, done ocean rigs. I mean, anything you can imagine. And I'm down to just a single hook, single 2-aught hook, and just get it as right in the back as horizontal as you can and let it ride. I get more hook sets, quality like do with that than anything I've used over the years.
So it's live bait though, right? You want this fish to be down there swimming around?
Yep. I mean, we just necessarily don't worry about them being swimming, because towards the end of the year we'll use dead suckers for sure. But yeah, I mean, you try to get live ones early. They like to see them chase more in the early season.
So suspended off the bottom. You're not letting these things sit on the bottom.
No, I still have never. Up in Higgins Lake, we did a couple times, but no, you try to, anywhere from 2 to 5 foot. I mean, and sometimes like that 3 foot of water. I mean, we're literally like a foot below the tip up, with whatever we're using.
Well, you mentioned Higgins. I mean, can you go north? Can you go to the northern lakes in the state and catch these big pike, or is this a southern Michigan experience only?
No, it seems like really the farther north you go, the better it is. I mean, there's more bigger pike farther north for sure. We talked about it, just going to any lake that we've watched over the years and just spend the weekend and see if we can catch some big ones. But definitely I've seen over the years, I mean, I've got buddies all over the state, and it seems like farther north you go, it's bigger water, more bait, so there's a lot bigger pike.
So when you're in the off season, when you're looking at your Navionics maps and your apps and stuff, what are you looking for?
Certain turns and humps. I mean, saddles are one of the best things if you can find a saddle anywhere. But, I mean, just the best predator advantage areas, you know, you can find quick drop-offs, you know, big flat close to deep water. You just find, you know, pike are complete ambush predators. They like to hide in the weeds and hide on any advantage they have using drop-offs and what have you. But you just try to find those best areas and pinpoint them and set on them and wait.
When I hear you describe these areas, though, it's the same types of spots that I hear the muskie guys talking about.
Yeah.
Do you ever catch muskies on your rigs, on your tip-ups?
No, we only have one lake in our area that has muskie, and we've been out there 4 times now and haven't caught one yet, and it's getting rather frustrating, personal little vendetta for me now. But no, all our lakes around here don't even have muskie in them.
Do you spear pike at all?
We used to, and I've got some buddies that are just starting to get into this, and they want to do it again. So we might do some this year. But I used to as a kid growing up. That's all we did pretty much when I was a kid.
Is the reason you don't do it now is because it's not catch and release?
Yeah, I mean, a lot is, I think it's just, I'm growing out of it. I mean, most of the lakes that you can spear, there aren't really as many big ones. And it's also nowadays, I mean, we don't get enough ice really to put a permanent shanty out to spear. I mean, you can take portable out, but it's a lot of work. And chances are you really going to do it? And yeah, I feel better about just letting a big one go than killing her. I mean, they're awesome to see in a hole, but it hurts to kill them.
Do you find your best big fish action is first ice and last ice? I mean, I hear that. Is that a cliche or is that true?
No, it's definitely true. I mean, first ice, we've got one lake. I know if we can be the first ones out there, we're going to get a big one. And, I mean, it's definitely last ice because it's right before they're going to spawn, so they're putting on the feed bag. And definitely last ice is by far the best. But really down here, we haven't got to see last ice in a few years.
I don't know. You have turned this whole action of chasing big trophy pike. You've taken it to the next level, Taylor. So I give you a lot of credit. I mean, I love the videos you guys post, and I love the way you post them too, because you post video of the entire fight. I mean, from the time you guys set the hook till you bring them in. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. We love it just to be able to watch it because, I mean, it's what we love to do. So nice to have those memories.
Well, I would encourage people to find you on Instagram and on Facebook as well and follow along and watch as you chase these trophy pike. Taylor Pierson, you're really good at what you do, and I respect people who are good at what they do.
Thank you, sir, very much. We'll try.
All right, Taylor, good luck. I hope Mother Nature cooperates and you get a chance to get back out there and get back out on the ice again. Yeah. All right, Taylor, we'll talk again. Appreciate your time.
All right. Take care.
All right.
We'll see you.
Taylor Pierson, find him on Facebook and Instagram because, as he was saying, when he gets ice, when he gets on these fish, it's really very cool to watch how they set the hook on these fish, how they fight these fish, how they are so gentle when they have to be, and then these guys have it dialed in. They're really something else. We'll take a break here in the Outdoor Magazine Show. When we come back, we'll check in with Chad Stewart of the DNR. How did the mandatory check-in go this season? And then we'll wrap up this hour with this week's Ask Avery segment. That's coming up in hour number 2 of this week's Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine Show in Houghton Lake on the Twister, 92.1 WTWS. You can hear us in Lansing on WILS, 1320 AM. And you can hear us, let's go to, Iron Mountain. Let's go north of the bridge. Iron Mountain, WMIQ, 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by MUCC's On the Ground Project. OTG is a program to improve habitat for fish and wildlife across the state. For details, check out the Michigan United Conservation Club's website. It's mucc.org. That's mucc.org. I want to turn our attention now to Chad Stewart of the DNR. Chad is the big game specialist for the DNR. He's a guy I check in with often, a guy who knows more about the Michigan whitetail herd probably than anybody out there because it's his job to know more about that herd. Chad, welcome back. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, the season's over now. I know you guys haven't had a chance to really fully dissect it all and figure out what's going on. But as you look back, what are your thoughts? What are the things you find interesting? What do you want us to know, to realize at this point?
Yeah, well, just as, one reminder that, if you're an archery hunter in sort of the southeast, that Wayne, Oakland, Macomb counties, we still have a late archery hunt going on there. So if anybody hasn't had an opportunity to fill their tag yet, there's still a little bit of time left in those three counties. But overall, I think that the season went really well. We were really happy with how the new harvest reporting program worked. And I'm sitting here looking at the numbers now, and we've got just over 300,000 deer that have been reported through that program this first year. And I think if you'd have told me going into the year that we'd have over 300,000 deer reported, I would have taken that. So overall, I think this first year approach and with this program worked out really well.
Yeah, there was a lot of concern of people saying, well, I'm not going to have cell service. I'm going to be in the middle of the UP. My uncle, my grandpa, my dad, they're too old. They don't know how to do this. But apparently people figured it out.
Yeah, and we knew that. We kind of figured that people would figure it out along the way, and that's not to diminish some of those concerns. I'm certainly aware of individuals and areas of the state that probably had quite a bit of challenge in accessing internet, within the time that we required. So, it's something that we're going to continue to look at and revisit. But when it's all said and done, we typically estimate a deer harvest around 400,000 deer in the state of Michigan, and to have about 300,000 of them reported gives us a pretty good indication that overall we've had a pretty successful program this first year.
So the question is now, Chad, what do you do with this info?
Yeah, and that's a great question. So the first thing we need to do is really understand this data and make sure what we're looking at. This is the first year of data collected a new way. So when you think about it that way, you really need to understand how it relates to how you collected data in previous years. So the first thing to do is try to establish what that relationship looks like. So we're still going to have the survey that goes out to a random subset of hunters, and we're going to get data collected that way, the way we've always done it. And from that point, we can start comparing the information we got through the harvest reporting to the survey data and see what that looks like and how those pieces relate to one another. But as of now, I'm expecting, within a couple years, that relationship and that trend to be developed. And then as we start getting this information, in a few years, we'll have a lot more confidence in terms of what that data actually means, rather than just looking at this for the first year and seeing what it looks like and not knowing how it relates to things that we've collected in previous years.
All right, let's switch gears here a little bit. Let's look at the health of the herd. It looked like we were going to get an early winter in the UP, which would have been a concern for those northern whitetails. I understand up in the Keweenaw, they started the migration. Then winter broke. What's the status now? What are you seeing out there now, Jed?
Yeah, from last I've heard, the deer have started some of their traditional migratory patterns. Are getting into some of their wintering grounds. The winter's long in the Upper Peninsula, and it's usually not too much of an issue when we talk about winter in January and February. The concern with winter in the Upper Peninsula is how bad it gets in March and April, because at that point, that's when those deer are energetically at the bottom of their barrel. That they need green up in the spring to start to recover from that. And the harder and longer and worse the winter gets, especially later in the winter, is where you start to have, the highest levels of mortality. So not really seeing any of that yet, but, deer are going into winter right now, and they're still pretty good shape. But we'll see how hard winter lasts over these next couple months, and especially going into that March and April time frame, which is always the concern.
You also oversee elk and moose. It looks like our December elk hunt went very well, and I think this is the year for the moose survey, isn't it?
Yeah, very good. We had about 120 elk that were reported harvested. That includes some tribal harvest as well, and we're still waiting on a couple more reports to come in on that regard. Actually, the success rate for the state hunters this year was a little bit lower than it was in previous years. So I'm trying to reach out to staff to see maybe if they can help understand why that was. But it sounds like maybe there were some winter conditions that made approaching elk a little bit more challenging. But still well over 70% success rate for the drawn elk hunters. And you're right, in terms of moose, we've got surveys starting this month. So hopefully in the next month or two, we'll have some survey estimates that are coming out for moose, which will be the first time in about 4 years.
All right, Chad, appreciate that. We'll let you go, Chad Stewart of the DNRmichigan.gov/DNR. We'll take a break. When we come back, this week's Ask Avery question right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Houghton Lake on 98.5 WUPS. You can hear us in Holland on WHTC. That's 1450 AM, 99.7 FM. And you can hear us in Ludington on News 97.98, 98.7 WLDN. The Ask Avery segment is brought to you each week by my friends from Security Credit Union. Security Credit Union loves to work with outdoorsmen and women, and they can help you with your next outdoor adventure. Check them out online at securitycu.org. That's securitycu.org. The way the Ask Avery segment works is this is your chance to get in touch with me and get involved in the content of the show. Send me an email to Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. That's Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Let me know what you want to suggest. Let me know what you want to, a question directly for me, if it's something you want me to pass along to the folks at DNR or MUCC or something like that. I'm actually working on a couple of questions, Ask Avery questions from folks. So I'm gonna fall back while I wait to get the answers on those. I'm gonna fall back on something that I've been making some notes on here for a while, something I wanted to address, and this is some terminology in the outdoors, some outdoor terminology. I hear people talk about this one all the time: stands versus blind. I put my tree blind up. Well, that one. See, you don't really have a tree blind. Well, I guess you could, but stands versus blind. If you are on it, it's a stand. If you are in it, it's a blind. So if you put a stand up on a tree, you're standing on it, it's a stand. If it's a ground blind and you're sitting in it, it's a blind. So stands versus blinds. A rub versus a scrape. A rub is on a tree. A scrape is on the ground. This is something a white-tailed buck does. It's a marking post. It's a way that they communicate, they attract does. So a rub, they come up to a tree, they rub their antlers on it, their rack on it. They are making a marking, they're spreading scent, whereas a scrape's a whole different deal. It's on the ground. They make a scrape with their feet, their hooves on the ground. They urinate in it. They open it up. So a rub is on a tree, a scrape is on a ground. Antlers versus horns. Antlers are something that a white-tailed deer has. Antlers has something that an elk has. Antlers is something that a moose has. Antlers drop every year. Horns don't drop. A white-tail doesn't have horns because horns drop. A cow has horns. A sheep has horns. And I think if I remember right, horns are hollow. And antlers obviously aren't. Antlers, for some reason, seem to be starting to drop a little early this year. Shed whitetail antlers, they're starting to shed them. They're starting to drop them. This happens every year. about this time of year as the testosterone level in the bucks drops and they drop their antlers. They shed their antlers. They don't shed their horns. Horns don't drop. What else? Oh, I hear people ask me, Avery, what's the difference between a pontoon and a tri-toon? Because they know I work with Angler Quest. A pontoon, the old-fashioned pontoons are 2-tube boats, pontoons. These days, you are more likely to see on big water, out on Saginaw Bay, on Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, you're likely to see a triple tube, a tri-toon. It's got a tube down the middle that gives it a lot more buoyancy, a lot more flotation, a lot better ride. A tri-toon allows you to put a bigger outboard on the motor. It allows you to handle bigger water. So I run a tri-toon, a triple tube, a tri-toon Angler Quest, actually with a 300-horse outboard on it. Another terminology that people tend to confuse is magazine versus a clip. In today's semi-auto handguns, or rifles too, but this really gets misused in handguns. It's a magazine. You take the magazine out, you put the magazine in. The magazine is filled with ammunition. It's a magazine. It's not a clip. There is something called the clip, a stripper clip that goes into some old-fashioned, say, World War II era guns. But no, for the most part, when you take the device out of the gun that holds ammunition, it's a magazine, not a clip. Suppressors versus a silencer versus a can. There really aren't any true silencers because it's not going to eliminate the sound from a gun shot. It's going to suppress it. However, the person who designed this whole concept called it a silencer. So if you call it a silencer, you're calling it the same thing the guy who designed it did. But for the most part, they don't silence things. They suppress gunfire. But you might also hear them called a can. A can is kind of the slang. What else? I don't even want to get into semi-auto versus full auto versus assault weapon. That's a whole topic for a whole nother discussion. We'll save that for when I have more time. But that kind of some terminology I've been thinking about for a while. I've got a couple of Ask Avery questions, formal questions, official questions from listeners I'm working on. As I get the answers on those, hopefully next week, I will let you know. If you want to send me a question for the Ask Avery segment, send it to me, Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. Email Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. And thank you to our friends at Security Credit Union for making each week's Ask Avery segment possible. We'll take a break for the top of the hour. When we come back in our third hour, we're talking trapping with Dale Hendershot of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association.
Time now for Michigan's #1 outdoor radio show, Mike Avery's Outdoor Magazine. Mike Avery has covered the outdoors in Michigan for more than 4 decades, and that tradition continues today. Outdoor Magazine is brought to you by Jay's Sporting Goods, the Eider Insurance Group, Angler Quest Pontoons and Polarcraft Boats, the Forward Corporation, Primal Tree Stands, Security Credit Union, Garber Chevrolet, Brenton USA Hunting Rifles, and by Michigan Brand Meats. Now, here's Mike Avery.
Well, thank you, Ken Hunter, for that introduction. Indeed, this is the big guy, Mike Avery, and welcome to hour number 3 of this week's Outdoor Magazine radio show, right here on the Outdoor Magazine radio network on more than 30 radio stations across the great state of Michigan. How are you? How are you doing? Is your new year off to a good start? We're past the holiday celebration now and into the getting into the swing of seeing what the new year has to offer us. And it is interesting, isn't it? The weather is throwing some monkey wrenches into our outdoor passions, our outdoor pursuits. No snow, no ice, for the most part. Now, that could change. When you're dealing with Mother Nature, things can change. In Michigan, things can change overnight. And if If some big weather pattern comes in and brings in these frigid temperatures and a lot of snow, all bets are off, right? But right now, as we are in the studio here recording this week's show, it's like 40 degrees, 42 degrees, and no snow and no ice. I wonder how that's affected the trapping activities, the trappers in our state. I have much respect for trappers. I have always said that I believe trappers are the most knowledgeable outdoors men and women in our state. For example, if you're a hunter, if you're a gun hunter, say, all you got to do is get an animal within, 100 yards or whatever your level of proficiency is, 100 yards, and you can harvest that animal. If you're a bow hunter, get him within, 30 yards, you make your shot, you put your animal down, and you harvest your animal. But trappers, now that's a whole different level of proficiency and expertise. A trapper has to get a critter to step in, a 1 by 1 square inch piece of land, of property, a trap? That takes it to a new level. Dale Hendershot is with the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, their website, mtpca.com. And I always look forward to my conversations with Dale because I think he's a very interesting and enlightening guy. And Dale, I appreciate your time. Welcome back to the show. How are you?
I'm great. Happy to be here.
So listen, how does this spring-like weather in the wintertime, does that affect your people at all, or do they just plug on and it doesn't really matter whether we have snow or ice for your pursuits in the outdoors?
Well, it depends on what they're trapping, but it definitely affects any trappers out there trapping right now. It's hard when you have thaw and freeze to keep foothold traps working, and normally this time of year we're also doing a lot of ice trapping for beaver and muskrat, and I'm not sure there's any safe ice here in the lower peninsula, at least.
Mm-hmm.
We had pretty good freeze and stuff started to go freeze up hard, and I live on Smallwood Lake, and 4 or 5 days ago, before we had the warm up, I actually had some ice fishermen in some of the canals out. I'm sure it was only a couple of inches thick, but there were a couple of guys out there, and everybody's disappeared.
Yeah.
So it definitely has affected anybody that's going after critters underneath the ice, and it is harder to keep the land sets working when you have freeze-thaw conditions all the time. I guess the one thing that we have going for us right now is that there's not as many people out there because the price of fur is really down in the toilet.
Mm.
So it's not affecting as many people as it normally would.
Well, your people, my sense is you're not out there doing this to get rich. For the most part, most people today aren't doing it as a living anymore anyway, are they, Dale?
No, they're not. But the one advantage trappers do have is under most conditions, not right now, but under most conditions, we can pay for a lot of our expenses, we can cover our gas money most of the time when we're out trapping and stuff like that. I hunt grouse too, and I haven't met a grouse or a bird hunter that ever covers his money.
Yeah, good point.
On anything. There are fewer trappers out there. There's still quite a few dedicated trappers, and it's a great time for people to get out and try it because there's not as much competition for space to trap in as there normally is, and there's also fewer people messing with our traps and stuff.
Well, give me an example. Like how much a rat for a muskrat? What's that going to get these days?
Okay, so hang on. my cell phone just went to sleep. I'm going to get back up here.
And I'm not, just in general, roughly.
Okay, so we just had a first sale.
Okay.
And I'm looking, you said muskrat.
Yep.
So at our last first sale, we sold 1,326 muskrats. The highest price on a muskrat paid was $5. The lowest price was 25 cents, and the average was $2.79.
Okay, so let's just figure $3 just for the sake of being easy to figure here. How much work went into that hide to make that $3?
Oh, a lot more than it was. A lot more than if you figure out the amount of work that went into everything. It was a whole lot more. What's out there right now is the dedicated trappers, not the people that are trying to make money. I did some figuring, and that's about what I used to get paid when I was in high school for a muskrat.
Wow.
And that was 55 years ago.
So what affects these prices? Is it pressure from anti-fur groups that does this, or is it strictly ebbs and flows of the market?
Mostly, it's ebbs and flows in the market. Most of the fur goes to China and Russia. That's where the biggest things are, and if you look at the economy in China and particularly in Russia, it's down in the toilet. And most of the tanneries that are used by the Russians are actually in the Ukraine. And at least two of those, none of them are working right now, and at least two of those have been pretty much destroyed. So, the biggest thing is the economy and a lot of the political situations that we have worldwide right now.
Well, I find that interesting that your people, your Michigan trappers, who are wandering the wilds of the UP and northern lower Michigan, are somehow tied into this world geography and political situation. I guess I'm thinking, we want to live in our own little bubble, especially outdoorsmen and women. And as trappers, you just can't do that because something half a world away is affecting what you get for your hides.
Well, it does, and those that are, and I mean, it's like this all the time. When we had a boom here in the late 20-teens, probably 16, 17, we had muskrats that we were getting $20 a piece for, which is ludicrous. But it all has to do with the worldwide market and what's going on, and China is the one that drove those prices up. Back then, they're the ones that drove that up. I think we had a top price that one year in there, we had a top price of like $24 for a muskrat. There is no muskrat in the world worth $24. Okay. So it can work both ways. It seems to work more on the low end than it does on the high end. But like I said, there's a lot of advantages to taking up and starting trapping now because the market's as low as it is. If you're learning how to put up fur, one of the things you're going to do is make a lot of mistakes. And it's really easy to take a $40 beaver or a $60 beaver and turn it into a $5 beaver. You're never going to do it the other way. You're never going to take a $5 beaver and make it a $60 beaver. But
hang tight, Dale. Listen, I got to take a break, but I want to follow up on that. I think I know what you're saying, but for the sake of our listeners, let's expand on that. We're talking with Dale Hendershot of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association. Their website is mtpca.com. MTPCA for Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association.com. Very active group, very good group, very interested in educating people about what they do, and we'll talk more with Dale about that after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in Traverse City on WTCM 580 AM. You can hear us in Tawas on WIOS 1480 AM, 106.9 FM. And you can hear us north of the bridge in Newberry, WNBY 1450 AM. This segment of Outdoor Magazine brought to you by Reader Landscaping. Reader can take care of your lawn and property because it's our nature and your nurture. Let Reader create an outdoor getaway in your backyard. But now you're thinking, why are we talking about this now? Because now is the time to schedule that project. Get in touch with the folks at Reader, readerlandscaping.com, readerlandscaping.com. Get in line for what you want to have done next spring because they will get busy and they'll get to your project. But they will have to push it down the schedule a little bit. Also, when we get more snow, Reader can take care of that for you as well. Again, readerlandscaping.com. Right now we're talking with Dale Hendershot of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, MTPCA.com. Dale, before the break, you were talking about prices and how you could take a valuable piece of fur, or fairly valuable, and ruin it, but you can't go the other way. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, if you have a piece of fur that's really damaged for some reason, when you get it, let's say it's been rubbing up against trees and the fur is a little messed up and stuff, you're not going to get top price for that. But you can have a really good piece of top price fur, and any place along the process of putting that up, you can damage it to the point where you won't be able to get the full amount of what it's worth. So things you can do is when you're skinning it, or when you're fleshing the excess meat and stuff off of the leather, it's easy to put a hole in the hide. If you put a hole in the backside of the hide on any critter, it's going to lower that value of that pelt. The more holes, the lower it goes. If you take too much stuff off, the leather on a lot of these animals is fairly thin. If you scrape down too far into that leather, then you will cut the roots of the hair. And then the hair will, what we call, slip. It'll fall out. So these are all things that are common mistakes when somebody first starts to put up fur to make. And it's much easier on your wallet and ego to make those mistakes on something that isn't worth a lot of money than if prices are way up.
Sure.
And you've got an animal that might be worth $100 or something. Let's say some of the otter at times have been up around $100, maybe a little over $100, and you mess that fur up putting it up, and you just took $125 piece of fur and turned it into maybe a $25 piece of fur.
Yeah.
That's,
Yep, I see what you're saying.
That's a learning curve.
Well, and how long does it take for somebody to become a proficient trapper? I feel like we're talking a process over a course of years. You're not going to go out this year and learn to become an expert trapper this year, are you?
No, you're not. It's going to take multiple years, and it's going to take a lot of different experiences. And some people, some trappers specialize with certain animals, okay? They may stick just to water animals and mostly trap mink, muskrat, raccoon, beaver and stuff along ponds and rivers and stuff like that. Others may focus on land. Some of the animals are easier to trap than others. but they all take expertise, and they all take learning exactly where to position that trap and how to put it, where to put it. You touched on that when we first started, and I always tell bow hunters, I teach hunter ed and bow ed and trapper ed, and I always talk to my bow hunters, and I tell them, if you really want to become a good trapper, you really need to learn how to bow hunt well, because you've got to be a lot closer than you do for a gun. And if you learn how to trap, that can focus back over into the bow hunter, because what you're learning and what you're teaching yourself and what the animals are teaching you is how to figure out exactly what they're doing and where they're going to go. So if you can learn to trap, you will become a better bow hunter.
I think if you can learn to trap, you're going to become a better, more interesting person in general, because the discipline that's involved and the hard work that's involved and the dedication that's involved in running a trap line, Dale, and going out there and maintaining it every day or whatever the regulation is in your part of the state, it's just going to make you a better all-around person. And that's a grand statement. I realize that, but I really believe that.
Well, there is a huge difference. There is a big difference between somebody who hunts and somebody who traps. And that difference is that the hunter always has an option. If you've got wind blowing sideways at 40 miles an hour or 50 miles an hour and rain coming down, you can sit there and say, you know what, I'm going to stay in the house and drink coffee today.
Yeah.
But if you've got traps out there, any trap in the lower peninsula has to be checked on a daily basis. So, I mean, you need to get out there and you need to check those traps. If you've got any live traps set for raccoon or fox or coyote or anything, you've got to check those traps every day. And there's no exception that says, hey, listen, if this is the case and the weather's like this, you don't really have to go do that. It's okay. So that alone makes a big difference between what the trapper is faced with and the choices a trapper has compared to what a hunter has.
Trapping has certainly had more than its share of criticism over the years, but I think you guys as a group trappers have tried to address this. I think you've done a real good job. For example, your traps, they talk about traps being inhumane and cruel. That's really not the case anymore, is it, Dale?
No, it's not the case. And, we've really pushed the trapper ed education portion of it. The biggest part of that is making sure that you use the right trap for the right animal. And, when I started trapping 50-some years ago, we didn't have some of the things on traps and some of the designs in traps that we have. Basically, they're the same, but they do have some caveats and updates that have been done for certain animals to make them to be a much more humane trap.
Well, I feel like every trap that is used for animals on dry land, we're not talking about, for muskrats or beavers that drown the critters, but everything on dry land, you can come up to that trap and release an animal, and they're going to walk away and be okay, right?
You absolutely can do that, and it's done all the time. I mean, if you look at the wolf and all of the stuff that's been done with the wolf, every collared wolf was caught in a foothold trap, and it was it was anesthetized. I would assume, I never saw it actually done, but I would assume they would anesthetize the animal, and they would take a whole bunch of measurements and data off of the animal and color that animal, and then sit back and watch it revive itself and go back off in the wild. Bobcat. We have a reasonable bobcat season here in Michigan, and we catch bobcat that are beyond what we're allowed to take and keep, and those bobcat are released. And, for a while the DNR wasn't believing that we were really doing that, and that's one place where social media has helped us, because you can go on social media and you can see trappers releasing bobcat because they've got their phone with them. They're taking video of it, and they've got proof to show the DNR. Hey, listen, we are, and we do. We release a lot of bobcats.
What's the hardest critter in Michigan to trap?
Well, that would depend on who you talk to, probably. Hard because of being able to pattern the animal and stuff. For most people starting out, especially, the coyote would be up there pretty high on that list, probably. But if you start trapping, you're going to have difficulty probably with all of them to a certain extent.
What's the easiest? What's a good animal to start out on?
I always recommend that we have so many creeks and small tributaries here in Michigan, and you can hardly go wrong trapping along a creek or a small tributary. You're going to have a wide variety of animals in there. You're going to have mink, you're going to have muskrat, you're going to have possums, you're going to have skunks. You may have some fox walking along the edge of that, looking for a meal. You just have a wide variety, and when you look at the muskrats and the possums and the skunks, they're not hard to catch.
Dale, it's always a pleasure to talk about trapping. I, as you know, I have so much respect for trappers, and I have a lot of respect for your organization, Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, MTPCA.com, because you guys are really involved in education and letting people know what you're doing. Dale, I wish you a good trapping season. I hope Mother Nature cooperates with you, and I will look forward to talking with you again soon.
Anytime, Mike. You take care and have a good day.
You as well. Dale Hendershot of the Michigan Trappers and Predator Callers Association, MTPCA.com. I have never trapped, but I am fascinated by it and have much respect. I'll follow up on that after the break right here on Outdoor Magazine. You can hear the Outdoor Magazine show in the thumb on WMIC in Sandusky. It's 660 AM, 95.3 FM. You can hear us in Saginaw on WSGW AM and FM, 790 AM, 100.5 FM. In fact, I'm in the studios of WSGW right now for this 3-hour period, though. We're calling it the Outdoor Magazine studio, and I got a logo behind me to prove it. I'm in here with Charlie Rood, who the weather today is, I don't know, it's kind of gloomy, and it's like, it's not warm, but it's not cold, but it's misty. And as a result, as I look out into the parking lot, Charlie, there is not a soul out there. I know that's disappointing for you, because we are used to, on the days when Charlie's in here with me, especially when it's nice. I mean, we get cars, trucks, vans. We get families out there. They bring their kids out here. They got signs, and they're chanting, "Charlie, Charlie." It's almost eerie. If you didn't see the smiles on their faces, I'd be a little bit freaked out, because it's kind of like a movie, you know? But Charlie, appreciate your help. Doing a great job as always. And also, I'm very, very pleased to announce that Killer Food Plots. I'm back with Killer Food Plots. In fact, this segment of the show is brought to you by Michigan-based Killer Food Plots. You know Killer Food Plots. I was working very closely with that company, and the guy who started the company and owned the company, Nick Percy. Unfortunately, last year we lost Nick to COVID. And that, of course, was very disappointing from many, many perspectives. But I'm so happy that Rich Krazan has been a good friend of Nick's, has been able to acquire the company, take the company over, and keep Killer Food Plots in business. In fact, I hope to have Rich on the show here in the next couple of weeks to talk about that. But, you know, as we start to move into the food plot season, I'm going to rely heavily on Rich, like I did for Nick, to be our resident food plot expert. But in the meantime, I'll send you to the website, killerfoodplots.com. That's killerfoodplots.com. And a thank you to Rich and, in fact, his wife for continuing to work with me here as, you know, the Killer Food Plot family evolves and improves and expands. I'm glad to be working with you guys. So killerfoodplots.com, that's killerfoodplots.com. I was saying in the previous segment how much I have respect for trappers. I've never done it, but my dad was a trapper, and I remember as a kid walking out to the shed and seeing his gang, I think he called it gang, his gangs of traps hanging on the wall of the shed, and what he would go through to get those traps ready to get them out in the field. If I remember right, he boiled them, and then he maybe just boiled them, but then he would bring back. He was primarily a muskrat trapper. He would bring back muskrats to the shed, and I'd get to watch this whole process. And again, I was just so fascinated by it. He would skin the animals and stretch the hides, and it was just a very, very interesting and fascinating process for me to watch as a kid. Now, why I never actually picked it up myself, I can't tell you. I don't know. I wish I would have, because I think trappers are, again, the most knowledgeable outdoors men and women out there. If you've got to get an animal to step in a trap or swim through a trap, that's a pretty impressive feat. And to be able to do that, you have to know your subject very, very well. So I have much respect. You know, Michigan and much of this country were originally explored by trappers. It was the trappers who were out there who were going into, at the time, what was a wilderness, literally a wilderness, to explore and see what was out there. So I just think trapping is so very special, and I'm so glad that there are still people out there today. The people who are doing it today are not doing it because they're doing it to get rich. They're doing it for a love of, I don't want to call it a sport, a lifestyle. What we also see a lot of for trappers in Michigan today is people who are nuisance trappers. Beavers are a big problem. Beavers will get into an area, they'll flood an area, they'll flood a roadway, and the trappers have to come in and take those beavers out. I just think it's very, very, a very cool thing to do and a very special thing to do. So what else? Let me check my list here as we get ready to wrap up this week's show. Dixie Dave coming up here after the break. Let's see. Oh, Pure Michigan Hunt. They have not announced the winners of the Pure Michigan Hunt yet. I think it's going to come out sometime in the next couple of weeks. I will be one of those winners. So just know that going in, I'm telling you right now, I'm going to win the Pure Michigan Hunt. That's the only way I'm going to get my bull elk tag. And the only way I'm going to get a Michigan bear tag for this year is when I win the Pure Michigan Hunt. Getting reports of whitetail bucks starting to drop their antlers already, their racks, their sheds, they're shedding their antlers. It seems to me really early this year. Why do you think that is? I don't know. If you have a theory on that, send me an email to mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com, mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. That's also the email address if you want to send me a question for the Ask Avery segment. please do that. Mike at MikeAveryOutdoors.com. I'm not going to the ATA show this year, the Archery Trade Association show. I am curious about some of the new products being announced there, including the new Primal Outdoors blinds and tree stands. Also, Darton's got a new crossbow coming out that has a beefed-up scope mount. I'm looking forward to that. But I can watch that from afar. I don't have to go there to see that, and I'm not. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll wrap it all up with Chef Dixie Dave Minar right here on Outdoor Magazine. Welcome back to Outdoor Magazine. My name's Mike Avery, also known as the Big Guy. Appreciate you being along with us. I love to sit at this microphone for 3 hours each week talking about the great outdoors, the history and tradition of the outdoor lifestyle here in the great state of Michigan, and occasionally beyond. I've been very blessed to work with some wonderful people, including wild game chef extraordinaire Dixie Dave Minar. Dave and I go way back to the early days of the Outdoor Magazine television show. He has just recently retired, just in the process of closing down Oscar and Joey's Roadhouse, which means he's going to have more time to fish with me this summer, Dave, on the Angler Quest, right?
Yep, and I'm going to pick back up small stream trout fishing.
Oh, good for you. Good for you. I got to believe, Dave, after being in business for so many years there, the process of actually closing down the restaurant, that's got to be a big deal, right? I mean, you don't just walk away from it and turn the lights off and you're done.
No, man. Well, the people that bought it gave us the right of salvage, and so it's an old building, and there's probably been 3 or 4 sets of electrical wires run in there, copper. We're going to take off the steel siding, and I'm going to build a pole barn at the cabin.
Oh, nice.
I mean, there is a tremendous amount of revenue to be had, plus, the makeup here, the hood, all of the plates and knives and all of that. Somebody might as well use them instead of going in a landfill.
Oh, okay.
If anybody needs any equipment, let me have it.
Well, will you use some of that gear for your catering?
Yes, I will. Yep. I got your catering. I got another catering for Fred Prost. And a lady called me that you're hosting her free wild game dinner or whatever. Is that what it is?
Which one is that, Dave?
April 15th.
April 15th. That was... Uh-oh. That one's not on my calendar. I better be looking here.
You're the guest speaker.
I am.
But I'm going to attend it. I'm not
we need to talk off the air because I don't have that one on my calendar.
Okay. It's on Facebook. You can find it.
I need to go to Facebook to check my schedule. Anyway, am I throwing you a curveball by wanting to do a recipe?
No, let's do it. Let's do
Okay.
the walleye and philo. We did this for the TV show.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many years ago. So you need about 8 ounces of boneless, skinless filet per person, or even up to 10 would be fine. You need 1 leek desanded and diced up pretty fine, 2 stalks of celery, diced up pretty fine, 1 small onion, same thing, diced up fine, a package of wild rice blend. I think it's around 12 ounces, and about a teaspoon of whatever your favorite spice is. This would really go good with tarragon or basil, or if you like oregano, Italian blend, by all means use it. Half a stick of butter or margarine, salt and black pepper to your taste, a container of dry breadcrumbs. You can buy them little tubes or make your own. And a pack of 16 sheets of phyllo dough cut in half, and make equal stacks and follow the instructions on how to butter and layer the sheets, and you got to cover them with a damp paper towel in between each use, or they get so crumbly you'll never be able to work with them. So in a small amount of butter, saute the onions, the leeks, the celery, and the spices for about 3 or 4 minutes, nice and slow. You just want to break the flavor loose. Add the rice blend, stir in the rice, the vegetables, and the butter together. You're only going to add 1.5 times the volume of hot water, where normally in regular rice you would do 2, but this fish is going to cast off some liquid also as it's baking. So bring it up to a boil, reduce it down to a simmer, cover it up, stir it occasionally, cook until it's almost all the water's absorbed. Set it aside, let it cool. You might want to put it on a baking sheet and let it spread out. So each portion will need about 8 sheets, 8 half sheets, that is. And arrange your stack so you can work comfortably. If the fish is thick, you want to cut it in half. Place half the fish on one of them stacks of 4, halfway down the middle, so in 3/4 side to side. Put a piece of fish down, add the rice mixture to the fillet, put the other fish on top, fold the bottom edge up, paint the mixture with the butter, sprinkle a little bit of dry breadcrumbs on it, fold the 2 inner layers, outside layers in, and then fold it over, and then you want to put the seam on the bottom of your greased baking sheet. Bake it about 375 degrees for, it could take up to 20 minutes or so, depending on how thick. So it's nice and golden brown and real flaky. You could serve this with melted butter and lemon, or you could take a half a stick of butter, 4 or 5 ounces of white wine, a squeeze of a lemon, reduce that down till it's thick and creamy, put that down, and then lay the fish packet on top. And it's impressive, but it's pretty darn easy to make.
It is impressive. I remember this one. It's a very impressive-looking dish, but you've come up with so many of those over the years, Dave. I look forward to continuing to talk at the end of each week's Outdoor Magazine radio show. Enjoy your retirement, and you and I will be talking again soon.
Well, the short guy's here for the big guy if you want me.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to have to call you later to figure out where I'm supposed to be on April 15th, that's for sure. That'll wrap up this edition of the Outdoor Magazine Show. My name is Mike Avery. My email address is mike@mikeaveryoutdoors.com. My website is mikeaveryoutdoors.com. Do not hesitate to reach out. I would encourage you to follow me on social media. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, LinkedIn, all that good stuff. And I'll talk to you next time right here on Outdoor Magazine Radio.